We are recording. All right, everybody, welcome back to Art Smack. I'm your host, Jerry Gagosian, and today we have a very special guest. Might I add, art world royalty. I feel so humbled that you agreed to come on my little podcast. This is Mr. Adam Lindemann, a notable art collector, entrepreneur, and founder of Venus Over Manhattan Gallery. He's here today to provide us with his extensive experience in the art world and provide his unique perspective as both a collector and a gallerist. Did I get that right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's unique, but I'll try.
Thank you so much for coming on. Happy holidays.
Thank you. Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And all that good stuff.
Are you buying any cool art for Christmas?
I am. I'm trying to buy a couple of different things that I've kind of obsessing on, but I have recently had a fascination with Aboriginal.
Oh, yeah.
I've been studying, I've collected African art and oceanic art and art of the Americas. That's how I really started. I started buying African and a little bit of Warhol. And I've kind of been into it all of this time, but I never really got into Aboriginal art, which is the art of the native people of Australia. And I've been studying that. So that's I'm trying to cautiously and carefully study it and put a couple of toes in the water so that I can sort of learn what I'm doing and meet all the collectors and dealers. And it's kind of super fun for me to find a new area that I don't know and meet everyone in it and, try to act like a big shot, which gives me some access. But it's one of the most fun things, and I've done it many times in different areas. And I realized took me a while to understand that's what I like the most about the art world is the learning part of it.
Yes.
And the nuances and, and how it relates, how Aboriginal relates to contemporary art and Yayoi Kusama and how it relates to Agnes Martin and how it relates to these people, but also how it relates to collecting African art, because this was also sort of part of a colonial history that includes a lot of tragedy and controversy and concepts of repatriation and morals, right and wrong and all that stuff. So that's what I'm Christmas obsessing on. What's the painting behind you?
Oh, this is a painting by
Jeff Koons.
No, it's a painting by a Chinese artist who, if I said his name right now, I would butcher it. But I found him at Felix Art Fair. Nicodine Gallery was showing him, and I'm the type of, I'm gonna get better. I think as I get older, I'll mature. But I'm the type of collector where
I don't think so. Yeah, that's an idea. You might go the other way.
But when I see something that I like, and when I say I like, I mean I love it. I look at this paint. It's in my office right now. I look at this painting every day, and I love it more, which is crazy because I actually have another painting that I bought that was probably one of the most expensive paintings I've ever bought. I don't want to say who it is, but the more I look at it, the more I fucking hate it. So it's very funny how that works when you're having a relationship with an artwork. I have there's this little artist who's not famous, named Masato Pang, and I bought an artwork by her probably like a year ago, and it's in my bedroom, and it's crazy. It's the first thing I see in the morning when I wake up, and I fall in love with the painting every day more and more. So it's crazy how some paintings make you feel nothing, some paintings make you feel everything, and then some paintings start to make you feel a little hate.
You know that that show of Jeff Koons called Easy Fun Ethereal? Jeff Koons paintings that from the 80s or whatever. Easy Fun Ethereal. Yeah. 2000, actually, 20 years ago, 25 years ago. That looks like that.
Except this is better.
Yeah, it could be better, but it kind of has, it doesn't look like it, but it has a relationship to it.
Yes, for sure. Later on, I'll move my camera so you can fully see it. So I wanted to add, I mean, you are a legend. You're also a very funny writer, might I add. I don't know, so many people in the art world, they're so afraid to be honest. They're so afraid and to laugh about like the reality of things. And whenever I read your articles, especially ArtNet, I'm dying laughing by your like brutal honesty, but it's not like mean. It's just like honest but funny. How do you dare to be such a person in such a buttoned up, pearl clutching world?
Oh, wow. Well, thanks for saying that. Listen, I think there are two things when I do the writing, and I'm glad that I'm back at it. Actually, I have to thank Steve Martin. He's the one who told me I should write again, and I decided to listen to him. And I read his writing. I was like, if he can do it, I can certainly try a little bit again. But I think I have two benefits. One of them is I have a lot of access. So I have a lot of information, and I don't work for anyone. I have the luxury of working for myself, so I can't fire myself. So in that sense, I'm not working in a gallery or working in a museum where I would be afraid of what someone else would say. On the other hand, I try not to step on too many toes these days because my wife is an art dealer and I'm running a gallery and representing several artists. So, but yeah, and the funny part is I think that honestly, I try to make it funny because otherwise, why would anybody read me? But my main rule is I don't talk about myself. I mention myself a little bit, but I try not to talk too much about what I think and what I buy and what I this. And I try to sort of come up with some insight that's fun.
What do you think's funny about the art world right now?
The funny thing is that we're in a kind of an art world recession, but nobody wants to talk about it because people are making money or they're living off it or it's their livelihood. That's kind of an interesting phenomenon and where it goes from here. So I talk to a lot of people I think are really smart and have a different feel from me, younger people, older people, whatever. And it's interesting to see what they all have to say. I mean, overall, I think the art world is still rolling and it's still, going pretty good. But I mean, look at the Sotheby's firing of 100 people. I mean, I haven't really seen anyone talk about like the history of Sotheby's and like what that means and how did we end up with a Patrick Drahi and a firing of 100 people. I mean, when I think about Sotheby's, I go back to Alfred Taubman and how he went to jail and that tragedy. And then everything that happened after that.
Yeah, it was so okay. I have this gift and curse that I'm always right time, right place. For example, that big thing that's going on in the media right now about Luigi Mangione and how he killed that United Healthcare CEO.
And how handsome he is.
Yeah. Do you want to hear something crazy? When I flew back from Miami, because I gave a talk at PAM and then I came straight back. I did not stay for the hoopla in Miami.
Thoughts?
I needed to just stay at a hotel for one night when I came back because I had meetings the next day in the city and I didn't want to drive back from Connecticut. Guess where I stayed? At that Hilton. And I was basically there like 6 hours before that guy got shot, which was just kind of a very random coincidence. But my other random coincidence was when right after Sotheby's got this big $1 billion cash infusion by, I think it was like a Qatari family that, according to my DMs, and my DMs kind of never lie, They want to just buy the whole thing, and they're doing it piecemeal by piecemeal. But just saying, I was at a wedding at the New York City Library, like right after all that stuff came out in the news about how basically his he's buying practices and how he buys on loans, and now his loans are maturing and he doesn't have the money to pay, blah blah blah. So I was at this really fancy wedding, and I go outside to have a cheeky cigarette, and I start talking to this like beautiful socialite looking girl who's probably on some kind of illicit substance, who's very chatty, if you know what I mean. And she was like, oh my God. She's like, what do you do? I was like, oh, I work in the art world. She's like, oh, I do too. Or I did. She's like, I just got fired from Sotheby's. And I was like, oh, why? Like acting stupid. I didn't tell her who I was, because people love to talk about themselves. They never like to take a moment to realize. Anyway, and it was so funny because this girl goes, I mean, it doesn't really bother me. She's like, my family subsidizes my lifestyle. I mean, she was wearing like a Monat dress that was at least $3,000. Like she was looking pretty good. She was like, so I'm not really worried about it. I'll find another job. She's like, but you know who I feel really sorry for are like the people that actually take that job seriously and like have spent like 30, 40 years studying like impressionism, because all those people also lost their job. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like, okay, fine, fire that girl. But like, if they're specialists, don't they need specialists?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting the way, I mean, Sotheby's was the only public company. And when Drahi bought it, I thought that he paid way too much money. And actually, Dan Loeb had a stake in it and was underwater for a very long time. And then in the end, if you recall, they had Tobias running it after Dee Brooks, mostly because after Alfred very sadly and completely unfairly, I think, in a total witch hunt, Mary Boone style, went to jail for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, they just changed the pricing structure the other day. No one's going to jail. I mean, come on, we're talking about the price of art. This is not a cartel. This is not a monopoly. So all of those legal doctrines were misapplied to, you know, screw this rich man, poor man, Alfred Taubman. But then Dee Brooks was in charge. And then when Dee basically she fingered him and she had to go away. And then her assistant, or I believe her, you know, number two guy, her lieutenant, was Bill Ruprecht. So he was suddenly like catapulted to the head of Sotheby's. He was never supposed to be the head of Sotheby's. It was Dee Brooks all the way. And Ruprecht was not really a contemporary art expert in the contemporary art boom. And so the whole thing relied on the shoulders of Tobias Meyer. And, you know, Tobias built it like into a big thing with like purple Warhol fright wigs for Tom Ford and parties with Linda Evangelista. And like,
that sounds like fun. Why wasn't I alive for that?
He made it very glamorous. And eventually he quarreled with the board and he left after 20 years. But and that's when that Amy Capilazzo deal happened. Remember that? The Amy, Allen, and Adam Chin deal where they overpaid for art partners or whatever it was called. But like from a Hail Mary perspective, I don't think they overpaid at all. They didn't have a management team. They bought one art advisory. They had a whole management team. They ran that for a while. And then they, anyway, it's an interesting story to me. But also you have to consider the fact that when Drahi bought the company, and I've never met the man, but I've heard that he's highly intelligent and he can always get out of trouble. Someone said, don't bet against Drahi because he's a cat of nine lives and he can lever these things up and get in and out of them. But that said, he definitely, the fact that I've never met him is too bad, because like I've met Francois Pinault and I've met the people at Christie's, the people at Sotheby's. Like, I've done a lot of business with these people over time, and it's my pleasure to know Guillaume Cerruti. Like, I enjoy talking to him. That's interesting. Not to mention Alex Rotter, who was, at Sotheby's. Now he's at Christie's, whatever. But my point is, Drahi is not visible. He's not part of the art world. We don't see him as a collector. But, he took Sotheby's into luxury. Like, they have handbags, watches, jewelry. And I spoke to the Christie's people, and they're like, we don't do that. At Christie's, art is not. They might have some jewelry in the background, but I don't know that Sotheby's got the equation right. But that being said, what did he pay? $3.5 billion, or I forget what the actual price was when they took it private. Sotheby's is the best brand in art. It's the number, in my opinion, it's the number.
You think it's better than Christie's?
Oh, definitely better. Like, Christie's is crushing Sotheby's these days, but Sotheby's is the number one brand. Like, you talk to people in the street, anywhere in the world, everybody knows Sotheby's. And that's why the UAE put up the money, because they put up senior money at the top, I guess. Drahi needed the money. But if Drahi goes down, Sotheby's will end up owned by the UAE. I totally agree with you.
So I know a little bit too much, but I'm also slightly inarticulate when it comes to this. But basically, the way I understand it is Sotheby's and Christie's is a duopoly. And when I was in business school, I don't know if you remember game theory. Did you ever do game theory?
Of course.
Okay. So, like, basically, what is it called? Like dead man's.
Dead cat bounce.
Sorry?
Dead cat bounce? No.
I think it's called dead man. It's basically they're both competing each other into the ground.
Oh yeah.
I wish I could look it up right now, but I don't want to be that person.
Well, there's Phillips.
Phillips is different though. Let me get to Phillips. But anyways, I think
there's Heinemann, and there's Swans, and they're like, you could go to lots of different places.
But the thing is that they're
online is kind of
down to the ground because they're like, let's say a big collection comes on the market, right? Which, by the way, I think I can't remember who did it, but the De La Cruz collection totally got fucked, in my opinion. But they make these bids, these auction houses spend a ton of money trying to find the right collectors and marketing and advertising, but they don't actually make that much money. That's the thing. That's why I'm never like, oh my God, when I see like, oh, they sold a collection for
the art world, nobody's making any money. Everybody's come on. Like, these are luxury businesses.
Yeah.
They're prestige businesses, and you own them for the prestige and the luxury. And that's where I think that, the Sotheby's brand is easily worth $3 billion. I mean, according to a recent trade I saw, the New York Jets are worth over $8 billion, probably 10. You'll probably get $10 billion from someone for the New York Jets. So if the Jets are worth $10 billion, wouldn't Sotheby's be worth 3? It's the best name in art.
So can I tell you one of my fantasies?
Oh, I wish.
I want so badly for either Christie's or Sotheby's, maybe Phillips, to pay me to basically, because they have the tech to kind of do, that show Sports Center?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want to do like the Sports Center of the auctions, because whenever big auctions come on, I live stream them and I just like talk, and I make it a big deal because I usually know a lot about like what the lots are. Also, if you pay attention, like you've seen them before. But like I also love like talking about the jewelry they're wearing. I love like talking about all the different specialists. It would be so much fun to do that. The other thing that would be really fun would be to host like just like a really over the top like 1980s style like white tie or black tie event where everybody's eating like stupid fucking canapes that everyone loved in the 80s and like watching the auction and just drinking champagne and being really over the top. I think these auction houses need to go back into like I'm sorry, the dress code, it doesn't make me want to buy anything. Like there's no lifestyle included in that, especially like the ones that are trying to like Sotheby's sell handbags and shit. I don't want to buy anything from them. I mean, I love Caroline Lang. She does the handbags and stuff in Switzerland, but like they need to like fucking lean into the glamour, because my God, it's going to become, I keep saying this, I keep warning the art world, it's going to become like classical music. It's going to become so boring if they don't bring a little, as the kids call it, riz, aka charisma, into it. And they need a little high fashion.
I think you're right. There used to be a lot more of that. And actually, Larry still manages to keep that going, but no one else does.
Yeah.
Christie's doesn't have it. Sotheby's doesn't have it. Phillips, forget it.
Yeah.
And it, you know, you used to have all those European dealers show up in New York in their Caraceni suits. Like they all had their $12,000 suits and they're all in ties. And we know they do nothing all day long, but they're all dressed to the nines, walking around New York and having fancy lunches here and there. That kind of thing is dissipating. It's not, the auction's not glamorous anymore. And whoever's bidding is on the phone. I don't even think
can we throw a really glamorous party?
Sure, we should.
Like, but I mean, dress code, and if you're not dressed, get the fuck out of here. Go home and change.
That purple fright wig, the big fright wig.
I have so
Mr. Chow's. He hung it at Mr. Chow's. Okay, insane. It was the Sotheby's took over the whole. Tobias took over the whole Mr. Chow. It was super glamorous. He invited all the models from Stephanie Seymour to Linda Evangelista to
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And it was this Tom Ford thing. I don't remember if Tom Ford was buying it or selling it, but he did show up. So it was this it was a great moment. It was like as good as the art world can be, with Michael Chow, with everybody there. And we're definitely, we've lost that. But
okay, I have a hot take.
Change. Maybe the younger generation, or new people, or you know, the multi-billionaires, they're too big and they're too famous to appear and to even come to a dinner. And actually, all these gallery dinners have been, you know, everyone's eyes and tedious. And
3 hours, get me out of there. Get me out of there. I want my bread in 10 minutes. I want my entree in 20 minutes. I want my dessert in 15 minutes after that, and then I want to go.
See, it's funny. So I'm kind of a retro in that sense. I love that stuff. I'll sit there and talk to people. As long as they keep pouring the booze, I'll keep hanging. As
long as the people are interesting. But here's my thing, and it might be because I'm Jerry Gagosian and people are afraid of me, which is nonsense. But like, it bums me out when I'm like, hello, like just talk to me. Like we don't listen, you don't have to talk to me about the inner workings of your gallery, but like, let's talk about art. Like, let's talk about like the things that get us off and the reason that we're here. Talk to me about that. Like, please. Like, I'm like dying for it. That's why I'm actually really excited to be friends with you, Adam, because like I'm craving this. I'm like, where the hell are the people? Like, where are the fucking cool people? Not these uptight women that are dressed like they're joining some Mooney cult with their big chunky glasses, and they're so inhibited, and like, unless you're a billionaire, which newsflash, I'm not, you know, they won't fucking talk to you, or they won't talk to you about anything interesting, and it sucks.
Have you checked out the Art Daddy? Are you familiar with that guy?
Yeah. I only know about it because my last guest became an art daddy because she saw him on my show. So you might be an art daddy next.
Who's that?
I don't know. Magnus Rush I don't know who runs it.
Oh, Magnus Rush. Yeah, no. I commented on the Art Daddy. It's on Substack. I commented on the Art Magnus Rush. I called him the best blow dry in the art world. It was a very popular comment. But the Art Daddy. So I was one of the original Art Daddies.
Oh, you were?
I don't know if I was the first, but Someone said, look at you. There's a picture of you standing at the Tefaf Maastricht Art Fair, and you're an art daddy. And I was like, wow, I'm so flattered that, women would like me, and someone would like me enough to call me an art daddy, put my picture and a whole article about me playing guitar or collecting art or whatever. And I was sitting next to Laura Bjork. Do you know Laura Bjork? I was at the
She's
Drawing Center.
Gorgeous.
I'm sitting next to Laura Bjork, and I'm bragging to Laura Bjork that I'm on the Art Daddy. She's like, "You're such an idiot. It's a gay blog. It's a whole thing about."
Is it gay?
It's all about gay. You're an art daddy because you're hot for gays.
Well, I used to have a thing called art zaddies. Like zaddies. Like, ooh, he's an art zaddy. I used to have
a gay blog, and it's so good.
That said that.
Although it is a little, I mean, he has made fun of me too, and of course I'm sensitive, but that's okay. I think it's very funny. Like he did a whole write-up on David Zwirner, and the entire article was just about the door of the gallery. And to me, it was just fantastic because he didn't talk anything about the art. There's nothing about, whatever, Richard Serra or Gerhard Richter. Forget it. It's just what that door means, that big, heavy wood.
Yeah. Have you, there's a really good Instagram account that you should follow. I think
the one on Bernie Lagrange is great. You would love it. It's kind of campy. And
wait, what is it called?
It's called the Art Daddy thing on Substack. He did a great on Bernie Lagrange. You know Bernie Lagrange?
Wait, hold on. I want you to follow an Instagram account. It is called, I love her. But she's anonymous, so I don't know. I have no idea who she is, but she's my girl spiritually.
You have an Instagram. How many followers do you have?
I only have 148,000.
How do I get more followers?
You?
Yeah.
Because you're richer than me.
No, I don't have more followers. I have less.
Oh, okay. You should follow Diva.
I love hers.
Do you know?
I love her. 1 million followers?
No. Do you know Diva Core _USA?
No.
You should follow this.
Diva Core _USA. Who is Diva Core?
She's anonymous. Nobody knows. She writes the best, most real art criticism online.
How do you spell her name?
Nobody knows her name. Diva, and then CORP, Diva Core _USA.
ORP. Diva Core. Official? Oh, Diva Core USA. No, I don't have it. VACORP.
Hold on, I'll share it. I'll share it to you. 1 second. Copy profile URL. I'll text it to you right now. This is the hot, interesting conversation promised by. But anyways, there, I just sent it to you. She's very funny. She's so mean and so honest, but funny too. Do you still follow the LA art world? I remember Venus over LA.
Yeah, that was so much fun.
I loved that gallery. Thank
you. It's sad that I sort of left one day, but
why did you leave? Because of the whole don't gentrify that pile of rocks.
That gave me, that they were protesting Gavin and they were protesting Michel Macaron and Nicodeme, where you bought that painting behind you. They were writing nasty things on his door. I managed to avoid it, and that gave me kind of like a bridge to exit LA because it was, it's far LA, but it's too bad. I loved it, and I love being in Los Angeles, but I think to run a gallery in a foreign city, you got to commit to showing up. Like you got to be there 1 week a month. And if you're not
actually know the people in the community,
you have to spend the time to know those people and to ingratiate yourself enough to sell them something. And I was just like, wow, I love the space. I love the light. I love the vibe, but it was just more travel than I wanted.
You know that I used to have a gallery in Los Angeles, right?
How was it?
It was called Hildy. And it was amazing. It was in
That's a
West
great name.
Adams. It had a really, really awesome cult following, and it was probably it goes definitely in the pantheon of the top 10 things I'm most proud of. I love that gallery. I had a great
Wow.
time.
How long did it last?
It lasted for 2 years, and then I had the great. It's fine. But what I'm about to say, it's not sad to me anymore, but it was sad then. I went to Hudson. My listeners all know this. I went to Hudson on June 26th, 2018, and I was bit by a tick, and I did not know.
You went to Hudson, the art dealer?
No, I went to Hudson, upstate New York.
Okay. You know, because Hudson is an art dealer who died of AIDS.
Oh, no.
And he showed a lot of artists very, very early on.
Get that paint.
It's kind of interesting, but a book just came out of people talking about Hudson.
Oh, no, that's not the Hudson that I'm talking about, but that's
kind of an insider's thing. When you say Hudson, we're like, E. Hudson?
No,
sure.
I went to Hudson, New York. I was bit by a tick, and I did not know, and I contracted something called typhus rickettsia, which took about 10 days to incubate my body, so I had no idea. And I had a gallery opening, and normally when I would have a gallery opening, I would go to the dinner and then go to the after party and drink and have fun. And halfway through the dinner, I was like, you know what? I just don't feel well. I think I'm gonna go home early. Is everybody cool with that? And everyone's drunk and nobody cared. And I was like, okay, see you guys later. So I go home, and 5 days later, I was in and out of hospitals. And about 7 days later, I was in the ICU. And then I was in the ICU for 16 days, and I was bedridden for 9 months after that. So I had to close my gallery.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. How are you now?
I'm fine. But that's how I started Jerry Gagosian, because I was laying in bed and I thought my art career was over. So I was like, what the hell? Might as well make fun of it now. Little did I know that was going to restart it.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, those ticks, who knows? I mean, Lyme's disease and all that. I've had so many friends who have had Lyme's disease and suffer from it, but I don't know if half of it is hypochondria or autoimmune or what it is. I mean, I just don't know. I've had ticks on every summer. I usually find a tick, but not I don't think I've ever been bitten by a tick, that to my knowledge, if that's even possible. But I have a dog, so the dog gets ticks.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, let's move on.
Okay, ask me a question.
I have so many questions. We could run through them all, but it'll take too long. So, okay, I'm always interested in this question. So you started off in finance, right?
Yeah, I went to law school, then I worked on Wall Street.
Okay.
And a radio company.
And then, so what was the transition from that into art for you?
Well, I'm always restless, and while I was running the broadcasting business, I did a music company, and I also was running a portfolio of radio stations, all in Latin music, by the way, salsa, merengue, bachata, cumbia, and I loved it. But I was collecting African art, and at some point, Jane Holzer said, "Come with me to the Warhol estate." And so I started buying a couple of Warhol pictures through Jane because I knew Andy when I was 21, 22. I'd been to the factory, been to Studio 54 dozens of times with Jane too.
Did you ever go down to the basement?
I was everywhere. But so I started buying Warhol. Then I had met Basquiat, so I started buying Basquiat. And that's it. I started buying art mostly in my 30s, not really before that. I didn't really, I had a job, I had some money, I had the wherewithal to collect a bit. I didn't buy anything like major, but I sort of climbed the ladder. And then I, made a transition to buying contemporary artists. Uh, Mostly when I met my wife, Amalia, she was, you're just buying dead people. Why don't you buy living people?
Yeah.
So I started buying people like Murakami, and then eventually Jeff Koons, and then eventually others like that. Mostly mostly to impress my girlfriend. Was the reason. I didn't really, I thought it was like, it was that kind of a thing.
I have the most devoted, loving husband on the planet, and I wouldn't change much, but I wish he was buying me Jeff Koons just to impress me. That's pretty crazy.
But no, I wasn't buying them as a gift. I was buying them for myself. But it sounded impressive. Also, like, I don't know, I remember, Urs Fischer made this teddy bear. And it was ridiculous in terms of price. Like, he was $125,000 artist, and he was making a $900,000 million teddy bear. And I was like, no one's going to want this. No one's going to buy this. But I knew the dealer, Eva Pressenhuber, and I liked her from my Franz West days and from going to Vienna and visiting Franz West. So I thought, this is the kind of thing that, like, the billionaire will go for. And I was like, I'm going to put my foot in this door because I'm going to play a really big game. And, back to the financial world. So these things, you put down a deposit and you paid over time. So there was sort of an implied leverage on the career, in a sense, that you don't really owe the whole thing. You're not actually buying it. You're more like financing it, and interim time, whatever, who knows what would happen. So I went for the teddy bear, and I remember I was so happy that the two other buyers, there were 3 teddy bears, the 2 other buyers were Steve Cohen and Francois Pinault and me. And I was like, how many games in this life am I going to be able to play where the 3 players are Adam, Pinault, and Steve Cohen? And I was like, thanks to Urs Fischer and my honest, love of his work, certainly at that time, I was able to, like, rub elbows with, the greatest collectors in the world. A very ambitious masterpiece. And I was impressed by Urs. I was like, this guy's got balls. I mean, he's literally a $150,000 artist making $1 million sculpture. I thought that was exciting.
I like his candles.
I do too.
So let me ask you this, because it kind of dovetails perfectly into my next question. I asked this with zero judgment, truly, but do you feel like this art collecting, art falling in love, like the whole thing, do you kind of think of it as like a big game?
There's different things. Art is content, art is history, art is belief, and then there's the art market. So, people seem to like confuse the two things regularly, and I think they're very different. There could be a very important or a great work of art, might not be worth anything right now. That doesn't mean it's less good. Like, we get stuck on, saying that prices mean importance, and that's not necessarily the case. So I would say, art is a passion, but the market is a market, and there's gaming in it, and there's also investing in it, and there's also losses in it, and there's understanding it. It's not unlike any other market. I mean, the idea that because it's art, it should live separately, and is of course a hypocrisy. And the other hypocrisy is that the collectors don't sell. I don't think that. And at one point in time, I was criticized by really some fairly ignorant people about, like, that I sold something and this and that. Usually the reason they knew I sold it is because I sold it for a world record. And frankly, that was good for the artist and that was good for the market. Yes, I was the beneficiary of it, but it's not like I plunged something. So like Dela Cruz situation, they plunge those artists. Like, the Dan Colin market is upside down. You don't put Dan Collins at auction. And it was like that Jerry not Jerry Gagosian, but the Jerry, the guy at Christie's who passed away. His entire auction was sold for this whole entire sale was done for no reserve, and a lot of those artists ultimately got hurt. So I think that there are sales that are acceptable and that make sense, and I think there's certain sales that don't make sense. So if you buy something from a gallery for $10,000 and you sell it for $500, you're hurting somebody. You're hurting the gallery. You're hurting the artist. But if it sells for a world record or it does very well, in a sense, that bursts the market. I mean, selling the banana for $6 million didn't hurt Maurizio Catalan. Okay,
No.
I'm not going to shed a tear for him.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever, well, I'm sure you have you ever bought something, taken perhaps a loss, maybe it was a speculative purchase, but you really liked it? Did that change your feeling about the artwork itself?
This is the problem. This is one of the realities of the collector. They're hanging their Cecily Browns because they're all worth 6 times what they paid.
Mm-hmm.
But if they bought something that was upside down, suddenly that went into storage, and that disappeared. And so sometimes I like to see people's collections when they enjoy the things that are not necessarily in vogue or in fashion or a personal choice. And I've gained appreciation for people who hold on to things and keep things and sort of live with them for long periods of time. It's not my personality. It's nothing I'd ever do, but I like to see it in others. For me, art is a journey, and I'm constantly changing, I'm constantly discovering, and I'm constantly learning. And if I'm not discovering and I'm not learning, I'm not enjoying. I'm not just a receptacle, a hoarder of thousands of objects that one day will be gifted to a museum. I do support many museums. I always support Massimiliano Gianni at the New Museum whenever I get a call. And I'm actually the head of the Rockefeller Wing Committee at the Metropolitan Museum. So I've supported the wing that does African, Oceanic, and Art of the Americas for, I think, 25 years or something. I don't even know how long. But that doesn't mean that I can't change or move or alter. Everybody does. That said, there is a crassness to looking at art as money. If you just see it as numbers, you've lost the point. We might as well just trade fish,
Yeah.
or barrels of wheat or the stock market. It's a lot better than trading art. Art is not that good a thing to trade for most people.
I know. Well, I'm glad that let me talk about myself for a second and just say that I am what you would probably call an eclectic collector. I own a lot of things that are probably worth very little. I mean, I could speculate that a few of my things might be worth some money down the line, but I just don't buy art for that reason, and I probably never will. And it's so funny. I'm totally outing myself right now. I have been having so much fun looking at the art on this website called DH Gate, which is a Chinese website that makes copies of major contemporary art.
I love that.
And so I've been buying some only because I'm when the fuck am I going to be able to afford a Rothko? Never.
I love that.
But it's very funny to me. So I bought a few things. I keep getting notifications they're coming. Matt's gonna kill me. He's like, where the hell are we gonna put these things? I'm I don't know. I'll figure it out.
I think it's super fun, and it goes back to what is the real thing? What is the fake? What is the real? And what is the value of the real? And I've really looked into that in so many different areas. But it goes back to the belief. We want it to be real. Even in our human relations, even in our business relations, we want it to be real. So the idea that, behind me is this Peter Saul de Kooning. And I had discovered Peter Saul as a child because his dealer son was my childhood friend.
Oh.
And I ended up reconnecting with my high school friend and doing working with the family of Alan Frumpkin and all of their amazing Peter saws from the 60s and 70s and 80s, and connecting with Peter, who I've worked with now for 8 years. Peter's 90 years old. But this is a de Kooning. So these are the great Peter saw de Koonings. This one's called Better Than de Kooning. And he's made and I think they're kind of rude, but they're fun, they're amazing. They have graffiti, they have liquid, they have Dali, they have de Kooning. And so, but that's something that that is just kind of like, it reminds me of my relationship to this work, and that I support it, and that I stand behind it. And so I sit here with it behind me because it's part of, putting Peter, is part of my role with respect to Peter Saul's work, of advocate, being some sort of ambassador, trying to spread the message.
I'm of the opinion, my great opinion on all things. I'm really waiting for emerging contemporary art prices to come down. I think they will. I don't think we've hit the bottom yet on, the recession that we're in. And I'm selfishly waiting because I'm like, I want to buy some fucking paintings, but I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. I'm not spending $30,000. You just came out of Yale. I don't care. Like, I don't know who you are. Like, give me a work on paper for $1,200. Give me a painting for $5,000. Like, that's where it needs to be. And like, let me build a relationship with you. Like, I have artists who I have collected for years, where I have like multiples of their artwork, and I can tell you their life story based on the artworks that I own by them. Like, I love them. I love following them. And as I mature and as my husband makes more money, because Lord knows we don't make money in art, I want to be able to continue to support them as their careers grow. But I'm not going to out the gate start supporting an artist who has the audacity to try to charge me $25,000-$30,000 for a painting. No way.
I think the entry price got way too high, and I've thought that for a very long time, but for some reason it's sustained itself and it has to back off. People are having a hard time. Like, I've spoken to gallerists, really respectable people who are like, I was selling these paintings for $800,000, and now people come back to me, and what am I supposed to tell them? Like, it's worth 400, and I was like, good luck selling it for 400. In the art market, when there's no buyers, there's no bids.
Yeah, well, that brings me to something else that I would love your opinion on, which is actually I was talking to Magnus about this, because he was basically saying, like, obviously art's a Veblen good of the highest degree, and then he was saying art purchasing is very sentimental, like exactly like what I was just saying, exactly like what you were just saying. Like, there's a sentimentality to it, and you have to be in a good sentiment to want to buy art, regardless of the price. And right now, there's only so many art collectors, right? Yeah, maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000 in the world. It's not big enough. How do you think? I think it's something around the lines of like glamour and actually having fucking fun again. But like, how do you think we bring more collectors into this world and like open it up a little bit?
Well, I mean, we operate in a very small world. There's probably a lot more dealers and a lot more artists for sure than there are collectors. But yet art is part of culture, so it gets a lot of press, it gets a lot of media. The New York Times talks about it, the press talks about it. But you're right, the actual art world is tiny. It's a speck. The only way to make it bigger is to make it more democratic, to make it more popular. Things like, Cause dolls, or Kenny Scharf t-shirts, or, Murakami plush dolls or things like that. But the art world itself is kind of a velvet roped place of the so-called intelligentsia, or people who want to see this as a hobby of the elites. So I don't know. There's a real gap there. There's a real chasm, and I don't think it's going to change. But I do think that the hot young market and that speculation that grew the art market. And that's like, people were saying NFTs are not art and this is bad and digital art. Maybe it's bad, maybe it's good, maybe it's boring and not that interesting. All those NFTs, the whole group of them. But what was interesting is that they really jet fueled the crypto market, and they jet fueled the adoption of crypto wallets, and they jet fueled the amount of gambling and speculation that was going on in the digital world. And honestly, once those NFTs collapsed, that whole thing kind of like slowed down. I mean, some of those cryptos are up and Bitcoin's back up and all of that. And I do think that eventually things will come out of this for sure, because internet as something that's transactable, as a place where you can do business, is something that's got to happen. But there is a good part of it. And I think that this speculation that we lament of, $20,000 artists selling for $500,000. Okay, yes, it's ridiculous, but it brings in a lot of gamblers, and it brings in a lot of volume, brings in a lot of money. And so that is the way. Unfortunately, it's not an answer maybe you want to hear, but all of that speculation actually brings activity.
So yeah, you kind of answered my question. It's definitely not the answer I want to hear.
It's about the value of things also.
Of course. What occurs to me in everything that you're saying, because I'm always trying to sort of problem solve here. And I think what I'm coming to is that in all major cities, especially where art is important, London, LA, New York, I don't know, Hong Kong, what the number one thing is? Commercial real estate is so fucking expensive. So you can't you have to be like a buttoned up, serious operation. You can't have fun and be experimental. Those days are long gone. Like Soho, what Soho is now versus what Soho was in the 50s and 60s and part of the 70s it's gone. And maybe I'm just being nostalgic for something that I was never really a part of, but I did, I lived in San Francisco, for example. And one thing I really liked about San Francisco, it has a little bit of a chip on its own shoulder, but I loved that there was a real art community. And you could go gallery to gallery and you knew everyone that was going to be there. You knew the artists that they were showing. You could hang out. You could get drunk with everyone. You could go to parties. It was just very community driven, and people weren't wearing $12,000 suits. They were wearing jeans and a t-shirt. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily glamorous either, but I wonder if it's just kind of logistically impossible now, given the price of commercial real estate, to even roll the dice and be oh, I'm going to have an event and I don't really care if I make money or not.
We'll go back to Sotheby's. I mean, look at the overheads that are required. Look at the number of people that are required. Look at the number of catalogs that have to be published and the amount of advertising. And even think about an art fair. We just came back from Miami, right? I think there were 300 galleries. How many works of art were in that art fair? And that's not even mentioning Untitled and Nada and Art Unlimited and this and that and 10 other fairs I've never even heard of. The amount of money that's lavished on that and the amount of capital that's required to finance that, to bring all these people and erect all these tents and put up it's kind of astounding. When you think about what the art fair itself makes, it's a fraction of what it costs everyone to put it together. I'd love to see what the number of the 300 galleries, what they spent to create that one Miami art fair, to ship in all that stuff, to insure all that stuff, to hang all that stuff, to light all that stuff, and then to move it around during the course of the week. I mean,
and then honest numbers about how many people actually sold, because they lie in their press release constantly.
I thought Miami was not going to be a good year, and actually it was excellent.
Really?
And the art fair brings in a lot of people, and it's interesting. I've been thinking about it because for me personally, that's not the way I buy. I don't buy going to an art fair.
Mm-hmm.
I like to research. I like to read the books. I like to go to the show. I like to spend time with the dealer. I like to understand what I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe meet the artist or meet people related to it. But the number of people who rather go to an art fair and just drop whatever it is, I mean, that's a phenomenon I don't think is going away. There's more business in the art fairs. There's more visitors in art fairs than in galleries.
Mm-hmm.
Who goes to galleries anymore?
Yeah, I guess that's true. But you know, there's a stigma, I think associated with going into a gallery. You walk in, no one will talk to you, like they're sizing you up instantly, like how much money do you think you have? Oh, sign into the guest book. Okay, we're gonna Google you really fast. Oh, what's your net worth? Oh, never mind. We're not gonna, like it's so convoluted. It's even when I worked, and I worked at a blue chip gallery. I worked at Gagosian, but I also worked at a lot of other galleries when I was a little baby. And no matter what gallery I worked at, like I took it upon myself to talk to anyone and everyone about the work, because I was privileged enough to be so passionate about the artists that we were showing. So it was so much fun to see the light in somebody's eyes and watch someone, whether they could afford it or not, fall in love with it, because you never know who you're talking to. And also, people will support art in many different ways if you allow them the opportunity to fall in love with it. It may not be directly in the way that, one may think, like maybe they're not going to buy I don't even know like how much Anne Craven's paintings are going for now, maybe like $80,000-$90,000, but like maybe they'll buy the book, like, and who cares? That's supporting art. Like, I just feel like you have to like talk to people, and you have to get people excited and make them feel in love, and like offer them a drink and offer them an espresso or a water, or fucking ask them if they want a glass of champagne. Who cares? You go to Prada, that's what they do. And guess what? It makes you want to spend more, because you're sitting there, you're waiting for your sparkling water. Or you go to, what is it, Loro Piana or Brunello Cucinelli, whatever. You don't even need to have lunch. Like they have like food for you. They have like drinks and snacks, and I don't drink, but they have champagne, and like you're treated like fucking royalty. And guess what? Loyal for life. Loyal for life. Love that brand because they treat you so nicely.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, where it's the same thing is that art is ultimately a luxury, and so are those things. But I think the hit ratio of people walking into a Prada store is higher than the hit ratio of people walking into a gallery.
But it doesn't have to be that way. It's art. It's art's fault that it's that way.
Well, I mean, how many people can afford to buy most of the things hanging on the wall?
I don't know, but I've been in Brunello Cucinelli with a very dear friend of mine not so long ago. $79,000, like that. Didn't even think about it. Oh, yes, sir. We'll have this delivered to your hotel. No problem. Like that's a painting. I don't know what gallery, but that's a painting.
Yeah. Well, for sure. Maybe a coat would be better though. Brunello Cucinelli, what was it? Cashmere?
He bought a suit. He bought a suit and some shoes.
Wow, that's quite an expensive suit.
But like, that's the thing. Like, I also study the luxury market. When I went to business school, I like made a point to like get very involved with like that. I got an LVMH certification. I like read all of their annual reports or whatever. And it's interesting because fashion counts art, but art does not count fashion. And when you look at the numbers, the disparity is astounding. Like the art market is like approximated at somewhere around like $18 billion a year. Whereas when you look at like the fashion industry, and this is just LVMH, I don't know the other big umbrella companies, it's something like $352 billion a year in profit.
Yeah, it's a tiny business, the art business. I mean, we love it and we're crazy about it, but it's a teeny business. It's a drop.
But I want it to be bigger. Don't you want it to be bigger?
I think so. I mean, I don't know. I think it is, it's growing, and I think it will continue to grow. I think that the younger people love art and will continue to do so. And I think even if, we have a little bit of a pause or a slowdown, I think over time, the art market's just naturally growing. I really do. Now, that doesn't mean everything's growing. That doesn't mean that galleries have not exploited. Certain artists have exploited their markets, have plunged their markets, have oversupplied, have overproduced and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, the whole thing is definitely growing.
Do you think, I made this joke like so long ago, I can't even remember, but like, it was basically a joke about like, Gagosian, this is a joke. Okay. But like, this was the joke that like Gagosian artists at their opening, like are there for like 30 seconds and they're like, where's my black car? Like, get the fuck out of here. Do you think that there's any like correlation or like anything that would sort of help make the art world bigger if like people felt like they could have some kind of access to these artists besides like a parasocial online relationship?
I mean, I don't think the artists are that hard to reach out to. I think that, and a lot of people are shy. They don't necessarily, I was with Peter Saul. I was walking with him and talking about Andy Warhol and Warhol this and Warhol that and the Warhol days and the Warhol blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And he likes to say that once he met Andy Warhol. And he's 4 years younger than Andy, 4 or 5 years younger. That's it. Like Andy Warhol would literally be 94, 95 today, which is interesting. And Jean-Michel Basquiat would only be like 65 years old.
Oh my God.
That's it. You think about it so long ago. But like Peter Saul is a contemporary of Warhol. It's just that Warhol died very young. But he said something that I find very interesting. He said that Warhol created the concept of the artist as celebrity. He said, we're not celebrities. I was never a celebrity. I didn't want to be a celebrity. I don't want to talk to people. I just want to do my work. No one has to take my picture. No one has to interview me. I'm just about doing my work, and what I have to say is in the work. So, I think Warhol learned his persona from Dali, because to me, Dali was really the first, personality in the art world with the, doing the multimedia and the film and the drawings and the paintings and showing up at events.
He was also, I read his biography as well. He was very strategic. So his whole thing is he would go and he would hang out with the surrealists, but he'd be like, oh, but I've got to go soon because I have to go hang out with like the aristocrats. And then he'd go hang out with the aristocrats and he'd be like, oh, this has been really fun, but like, actually I have to go hang out with the surrealists. And so he created this sort of like demand.
And Warhol would do the same thing. And certainly, Jeff Koons has played some of those roles too. But I go back to what you said, should the artist be more available? I think it's case by case. I mean, Richard Prince, I speak to him. I always enjoy my dialogue with him, but he doesn't want to be spoken to too much. Like he likes to, I don't know what he's doing. He's in his own world. And certainly Peter Saul, he's living upstate in Germantown. He's not into like,
Yeah.
show up, sign some books. He's very generous, shake a few hands. He might even do a little drawing in your book. And so will Jeff Koons, but they basically don't want to be open to the public at all times. So artists are different people, and each artist is a little different.
Can you tell me a little bit about Andy Warhol since you actually knew him?
I'll tell some of my boring old stories, but
Yeah.
I was not an intimate friend of his.
Mhm.
I knew him through my girlfriend, but so Andy, he liked celebrity, and he liked aristocracy, and he liked old money.
Mhm.
I wonder how he would have handled all the new money and the hedge fund money,
Mhm.
the kind of billionaires of today. I'm sure he would have found his way. But in those days, as I recall, in the 80s, he really loved patrician ambiance and people of great prestige from their families.
Mm.
And he also liked things like horse racing and show jumping and polo matches and
Mhm.
yachting and all the things that you might see in A Great Gatsby
Mhm.
or movie. And that was Warhol. He loved celebrity, but he also loved like prestige.
Mhm.
Probably because he came from a very humble background in Pittsburgh. Who knows why? But he was also very much, as I recall, he gave very little. He was there,
Mhm.
and he was known for things he had done, but he actually gave very little. He didn't talk much,
Mm.
didn't say much. And I remember him, just perhaps because I was a 20-year-old. I remember in the 80s, he was considered like a has-been.
Oh my God, really?
Total has-been. The work was selling very, very badly, and compared to what it was like in before. And he was a major celebrity. Like anywhere he went, people wanted to meet him. But in terms of his like traction as an artist, he was not considered to be someone who was like anywhere near in his sort of finer moments.
Mm.
Remember, he was doing a lot of commission work in those days. Like even the Bridget Bardot's,
Yeah.
Winter Sachs went to Andy, said, "I'll pay you to make 12 portraits of my wife, Bridget Bardot." It wasn't like he decided to do Bridget Bardot. So there was a lot of sort of things going on in the world of Warhol that were very different the way I remember it by the 80s than what it was. I don't know what it was like before.
Mm-hmm. Do you think he would have liked me?
I think he would have liked you a lot. I'm very sure. And he definitely would have participated on this podcast.
I just asking because so I've read almost everything that I can find on him. And I do whenever I consider myself a Warholian. And whenever I talk to people about my spiritual art family, I would definitely say that he is like maybe not a father figure because it would be great to have a gay father. I don't know. He didn't seem very paternal. He's more like my fairy godfather. He is and he has influenced me so much because Jerry Gagosian is a conceptual art project.
Of course. But do you think that the world of Warhol will translate to the next generation? Or do you think that we're kind of like stepping further and further away from Warhol? Because I feel that people, I've heard this before and I don't have an opinion on it, but to me, I'm kind of like weaned on Warhol. But like, a lot of people don't know who Elvis, Liz, Jackie are anymore, and people don't seem to care.
That's hard to say because you're right. They call them like micro trends now, and they're impossible to keep up with. I really don't know. I wish I knew. But I think there will always be people who listen, the experience of being alive, hopefully, is about having the opportunity to fall in love over and over again with people, with ideas, with places, with things. And I don't give a shit how quickly my phone feeds me information. The opportunity to fall in love is all around me all the time. And I don't think I'm unique.
Mhm. I love that. And Jerry, thank you so much for having me as your guest. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Wishing you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the painting behind you.
Thank you. I'll send you
It's
the
great.
artist.
I think Nicodemus is right. He's got some good artists, that guy.
Yeah, but wait.
Adrian Genny, I discovered in his gallery.
Oh, I love Adrian.
Adrian Genny.
But wait, before we go, can we please throw a really glamorous party?
We'll have to do it. Okay, it'll be an 80s party.
Okay, well, let's throw an 80s party sometime in 2025.
Done.
Pinky promise? Wait.
You and me.
Okay. We're so good.
Bye, Jerry. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.